You are listening to the Smart Betting Club podcast with me, your host, Peter Ling. Now, this podcast is sponsored by the Matchbook Betting Exchange, and you can find out more on what they offer smart bettors over at matchbook.com. And if you are interested in learning more what it takes to make a profit betting, please do check out my service for winning bettors over at smartbettingclub.com. Hello and welcome to the very latest Smart Betting Club podcast. This is episode 82. And it's another Betting Clever episode where, as usual, I'm joined by my partner in crime to discuss all things better, Josh Holloway. How are you, Josh?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Yourself?
Very good, mate. Enjoying Safer Gambling Week. And whilst we always promote the idea of responsible gambling, Safer Gambling Week has brought forward quite a few interesting quotes and messages from bookmakers and betting newspapers, etc. What's been your favourite of the week so far, Josh?
Don't want to pick on them because they were all much of a muchness, but I did see one from Tipsters. Just read it. Whilst we're not here to tell you what to do, please remember that gambling is never a means to make money. We've never underlined. William Woodham's been he's not been annoyed with us, I think, for just taking a mickey out of that a bit, but it is one of those things where you just think, well, why is everyone involved if the means isn't to make money? Obviously, they're in it to make money. A lot of us are in it to make money, and whilst there's an entertainment aspect and not a lot of people will win, it just seemed really daft to me. There's plenty of others though. There's the colour-coded pens. There's taking a walk to the shop.
Tell us about the colour-coded pens, mate. That was a classic.
That one was actually all right because the central message was basically record all of your bets, which I think is a good thing to do. I think even though it can be a bit time-consuming, it is worth doing. It was basically talking about taking a trip to WH Smith. And then another of the contributors to the Racing Post talked about walking down to the shop to place his bets, which again, I could understand what he was saying, but it all felt just a bit trite, a bit patronising, if I'm honest. That's how I felt about it. And that's how I felt about the copy and paste emails that I've received from 15 bookmakers, most of which I haven't bet with for 2 years. So yeah. How about yourself? Have you got a favourite?
Well, I mean, I saw Tom Brownlee saying that all the 72 safer gambling emails from companies that won't let me bet with them, even though I do so responsibly. Yeah, some of the favourites you've mentioned, I think, to be fair to William Woodhams, he did say he would have worded that differently and he's taken that up with his team.
Yeah.
And yeah, my favourite was one I retweeted yesterday. It was Miguel Figueres from Winner Odds, who basically said Bet365 said he was risky and had exhibited problematic gambling because he'd won a lot of money. So that was a good one. But yeah, it is very much like a copy and paste kind of approach. Similar. Did you say you saw similar, the exact same phrasing from several different bookmakers in their emails?
Yeah, Monday morning. It's obviously being organised through the BGC, and obviously it's its own standalone campaign. But I think I had 3 emails with the identical headings. So it was "Let's talk about Safer Gambling Week." And then if you looked at the opening paragraphs of each of the emails, they've obviously been sent a template and they've played around with it a bit and then added or taken away their own little parts. But we sound very, very cynical, don't we? I mean, there are some messages in there which are important, but some of it just feels like you've been spoken to like you're a child. Come on, everybody understands the game. It's just daft to pretend that they're all pally-pally and they really care about us. I mean, history tells us what the truth is in that regard. It's only been massive fines from the Gambling Commission and bad publicity that's got their house in order. It's not some kind of moral reawakening where they've all of a sudden decided that they're hippies and that they want love and peace in the world. It's just, a bit sickening, really.
It is. And it's like ticking a box and just things they've got to do. Otherwise, if they don't, and they don't take part or they don't put forward all the, like they say, the kind of standard messages, then they're the outlier and they could potentially be in the crosshairs of the Gambling Commission who are never short of fining the people for something like this. Obviously, they don't fine people for things like delaying withdrawals and stuff, but we'll talk about that a bit later.
Yeah.
And on the agenda today, Betfair SP, we've got a detailed review that you've put forward, Josh. You've been writing. We've got a special on Betfair SP and a service we've evaluated. We're also going to talk about the Professor from Oddschecker, some of the other tipsters they work with. Maybe we'll talk about the Tipster League that's going on. And we have...
Big news.
Yeah, we have a really interesting tidbit about the ASA. Now, the ASA is Advertising Standards Agency, and some complaint that we put in that they're not going to follow through on. And yeah, loads of other stuff as well. Talk about some reviews coming up. So plenty on the agenda today. So let's kick off though with Betfair SP analysis of that. Now, Betfair SP has become increasingly more popular as people especially struggle with state restrictions with bookmakers and affordability limits as well. We're able to get down at Betfair a little bit more and use Betfair SP as a way of getting their bets on. So we have had more interest in Betfair SP and betting on Betfair in general due to those, mainly just due to state restrictions. And so with that in mind, we've really tried to put something together about Betfair SP to do some more detailed analysis alongside this new review of a new Betfair SP focused tipster service. So take it away, Josh. Explain a little bit more about what we've been doing and the review itself.
Yeah, so the review is on a service called Goody Who. I think I'm saying that correctly. It's definitely in the right ballpark. It's a Welsh name, spelt with very few vowels. So that's where the initial confusion came from. Yeah, like you say, a BSP service, and from a review standpoint, that can cause some issues for us. So ordinarily, when you're looking at a tipster, you're thinking, okay, someone tips something at 5-1 and it goes off 4.5 on the machine on Betfair. It's beating the price. They know what they're doing. That's the most cast iron way of knowing whether a service is up to much or not. There are exceptions to that. I mean, Thomas Pearson, who we reviewed the month before, I think it was a month before, maybe 2 months before. There are quirks in the market. There are places where tipsters can find value at the starting price, but in general, that's what we look for. Now, obviously, without CLV and without a closing price, it becomes a bit more problematic. So look to introduce 4 or 5 different metrics to start with that we've not used extensively in reviews before. We've ended up with 3. So the first is using AE, which is average over expected. It's not by no means revolutionary, but just looking at how the tips perform against market expectation. So I've used the example in the review. If you use, like, say, a golf tipster and they advise things at level staking, so 1 point win on everything or 1 point each way on everything, you can get massive aberrations in records where it can make the tipster look a lot smarter than they are. So we've introduced that. Also introduced some unit win staking analysis, which makes the edge on every single bet the same. So backing a 50-1 shot, you'll have half the stake, or roundabouts half the stake as if you're backing on a 25-1 shot. And then the last one is something I think I've written in a review that I really struggled with, coming up with something that could be applied for big data. But it was looking at percentage of horses beaten, which is another metric which is widely used by system bettors. What we've ended up with there is a little bit more basic than what I originally envisioned, but in trying to build something that we could apply across the whole data set, I just ran into so many roadblocks along the way and found lots of caveats that would ruin my rules. So, yeah, had some help there off the likes of our analyst Mark Littlewood and Steve Tilley, who I spoke to on Twitter and via email. So it's been a bit of a learning process for me the last month or so, but hopefully we've produced something that sums the service up well and gives people an idea of how to use it most efficiently.
Yeah, because we obviously the increase in demand in Betfair SP services, we wanted to increase the way that we evaluated them and provide these extra metrics. We've had what we termed advanced tipster analytics, looking at Monte Carlo simulations which work very well, and can apply to this particularly well. But we wanted to evaluate, what kind of edge a service has in the Betfair SP market, because Betfair SP is something that you don't know until the race actually starts, and it can be cannibalized. Like, the more people that take a horse at Betfair SP, the more organically its price will be lower due to the algorithm that Betfair have on its pricing. So a little bit challenging like that. I think you can do it at Betfair Bot Manager, but you can't adjust your stake based on what odds it will start at. You can put in a minimum odds request, can't you? So you can say, don't take anything below 5.0. And if the Betfair SP is below that, the bet isn't matched, for example.
Yeah.
So there is some flexibility there, but it's tricky because, when you come to Betfair as value betting, you only really bet when the odds are in your favour. And if you don't know what the odds are till the race starts, then there's the challenge there, isn't there? But let's talk about Goody Who, though, because that's a Betfair SP specific tipster service that is looking to make an edge at Betfair SP, whereas you've got other services which advise fixed odds with bookmakers and then also make a profit at Betfair SP. But Goody Who is making an edge at Betfair SP.
Yeah, or even betting on exchanges and aiming to beat the BSP. So it's kind of working backwards. If you agree with something that 99.9% of people agree with, that on average the BSP is a good barometer of price, what you're trying to do as a bettor, if you're betting before that time, is to try and beat that price. And over time, that's very predictive of how successful you'll be. I know a lot of people just look at profit and loss, but if you read up on this stuff or if you look at any type of record, you'll see that that's not predictive anywhere close compared to BSP. So yeah, what Judy Hughes doing and other system bettors is they're kind of working backwards from that. So if you look at a race and you find some biases in the way people bet, even at the closing line. So for example, I'll come up with some really basic ones. So the top weight in a handicap is overbet. A favourite beaten last time is overbet or underbet. What you can do is you can create a set of rules that provide, they spit out outputs each day, and you can end up finding some quite good value that way. It's an evolving beast as well, because obviously something else I pointed out in the review, these markets do have inefficiencies within them, but they generally get corrected. So it's noticing when that's happening and adjusting your system and finding new variables that are being underbet. Yeah, it's very much different from anything we've looked at before. And so I had to kind of change my frame of reference for how to look at it. But very impressed, and I like the way it's run. I like how transparent it is. John, who runs it, is a very modest guy, very open to like suggestions from his members and followers. So yeah, the way a tipster service should be run. I think we're going to talk about some stuff later on. We're talking,
We will.
Yeah, that's the polar opposite of what you're getting here. You're just getting a genuine guy who's trying to help people. He's doing it for free at the moment as well. So
Yes.
yeah, there's just so much to it. That's so many boxes ticked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's doing it for free. I think I asked him, he said, yeah, there is plans to charge at some point in the future, but not at the moment.
Yeah.
He's got a very detailed record. You know, he understands his edge. He understands the market. Like sometimes you can't say that for every service that we review.
No.
You know, so, and he's just, professional and easy to liaise with and good customer service. So yeah, lots of boxes ticked. With this, hopefully we're able to just enhance way we evaluate and analyze Betfair SP tipsters, because there are different challenges with that. And like say, for example, the AE example that you've given, a way of seeing if services have performed particularly well due to some big winners, that maybe they've underperformed in overall, but those big winners skew the picture, so to speak. So this is a better way of doing it. And then I know you've also looked at how the edge can erode and change over time with some other services. So it's probably something we're going to continue to look at. How can we oversee this? Look if an edge is changing, for example. So yeah, Betfair SP, if it interests you, we do have a few other tipsters on there. Like I say, there are a few which you can just bet and forget, which obviously people want. They say, yeah, you can bet at Betfair SP and place that particular bet. There are others where, you perhaps need to put more time in, you bet before the off. You can use software like Betfair Bot Manager, or even just manually placing it yourself at different points to bet into the live market, or sometimes the in-play market on Betfair. So as ever, I think with things like this, the more you're able to commit to it in terms of time and logging your bets and what have you, probably the more you can actually make. So if Betfair SP interests you, then, and I think we'll see more people, won't we, Josh? Because demand is there for Betfair SP services or Betfair services. Then go check that out. Some sterling work there. Anything else on Betfair SP, or should we move on to the professor?
Just one little thing. I can't remember who posted it now. It may have been the Mind Modeler on Twitter. I saw some correspondence between people talking about how we have to adapt at the moment. So people who like to bet on horse racing. When I first started on betting on horse racing, I used to bet the night before, as crazy as that sounds. Yeah. And then if I wasn't betting the night before, I was betting in the morning. I was betting 10, 11 o'clock and getting on what I wanted. The game has changed now. So you either have to spread stakes around in the morning. I mean, forget the night before, by the way. Yeah. Spread stuff around in the morning, or you have to wait for the show. And that's where these services who can offer something where you can access those markets profitably. That's where the future is with horse racing at the moment, because those markets are not getting stronger and they will probably never return to where they were in their heyday. So yeah, it's all about adapt or die. There's no point moaning about not being able to get on in the morning. You've got to adapt. So that would be my message about that. But yeah, you mentioned him there. The professor, Oddscheckers, high staking, multi-sport tipster, has bitten the dust. Thoughts, Pete?
Well, he didn't make his 3-month probation period, which was a bit curious that he had a probation period, to be honest, because, well, the way he was launched. So if you haven't followed the Oddschecker Professor story, launched with much fanfare come August ahead of the new Premier League season, the football season, but there's a tipster bet on a variety of sports, put up a myriad of bets. So I think there must have been close to 2,000 tips put up during that period. at least over 1,000. It made a loss, although you might not have known that because sometimes they were tweeting, hey, we've done well over the last 5 days, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it just didn't sit well with me, like obviously didn't do their due diligence. Obviously didn't have an in-house testing period before. They didn't, they just launched it and said, hey, this is really good. Chuck a load of money on it because we're telling you it's good. So you've got this reputable brand and working in a way and doing things which haven't been thought through. And I think as well, there's a conflict with what Oddschecker do. They charge bookmakers to be on their odds comparison panel. Bookmakers kind of feel like they have to be on Oddschecker, even though they probably don't like it. They don't really want price sensitive customers. So it's kind of like something that they do with gritted teeth. And yet here they are, Oddschecker promoting a tipster that they say is going to make a load of money for people off the very bookmakers that they're listing. It just doesn't sit well, that conflict. And the fact it just ended up so poorly. Yeah, again, you just wonder what's going on there. And also some of the other people they're working with or have promoting them, just so many questions or questionable people with promoting all kinds of, I don't know how you term them. Josh, you've looked into this further than I have, but just they're relying it.
This is my position. I'd call them scam artists. That's obviously it's not an SBC position. It's my personal position, but I'm not saying that about the betting professor, actually. No. I think it's a slightly different case. Some of the people that they are involved with, though, I would call scam artists. It's not saying they're terrible people. It's basically saying every single marketing trick they pull, every single thing they do on social media is about obfuscation, about masking what they really have achieved. I just think, the practices that are going on there. You mentioned there that they were Oddschecker or their social media people were often saying, we've been profitable for the last 5 days. You've said this many times, Pete. What you can guarantee is that on the 6th day before that, they made a loss. What you get with some of the people they're working quite closely with is they'll put up 7 or 8 bets in a day, at least a handful anyway. They'll all be short prices, and inevitably at least one of those will win. Maybe sometimes 2, 3, 4, or even maybe a full house. And what they'll do is they'll celebrate the winner, even on days where they've made an overall loss by any staking system, whether that be flat or unit win. And there's no transparency. You won't find any detailed record anywhere. And there's a reason you won't find any detailed record anywhere, is because they lose absolute bundles of money in exchange for affiliate money. So punters' friend, they're not. And it surprises me that Oddschecker get involved with them, because Oddschecker do have very good tipsters for recreational punters. We've previewed Andy Holding positively.
Yeah.
You never see any of that stuff coming from him. Niall Lyons, the same. People like Mark O'Hare. Steve Ryder's a good guy from everything I've seen of him and read of him. But then some of the marketing stuff they're doing at the moment is just bizarre. And Betting Professor was meant to be a move away from the affiliation model with bookmakers towards a subscription model. Probably meant to mark some kind of sea change. But this stuff is completely out of whack in that. From that, it's in the opposite direction.
It is indeed. And I think, like you say, there's some good people on there. And if I was if I was Andy Holding, nice guy, lovely guy, I had him on the podcast, knows his stuff, professional.
Yeah.
As a punter, you'd be tearing your hair out saying, why am I being aligned with these people? Because there's that connection, between them, and just doesn't look good. And especially, we're laughing about Safer Gambling Week messages and how cookie cutter they are and how box ticking they are. But this doesn't align with that. Sometimes some of the people that, as a brand, which, is on board a lot of bookmakers who spend a lot of money to be on their platform, to then have that connection to people that, like you say, running scams or just devious or, just promoting poor products or just betting in an irresponsible manner. I feel like there's some questions to be asked there. So, well, it doesn't look good at the moment. So we'll just be careful, if you're on a platform like that. Not to, everyone is to be followed or to be recommended. Compare them with, Sporting Life, which is a competitor of theirs. They don't do odds comparison, but they do content. And they have some very good people on there. And, the way they do things is correct. And of course, from a sharp, smart betting perspective, there are things that we'd change, but we understand how they operate and they're doing things in the right way.
Yeah, they're not for us, are they? Like, when you're starting out, the likes of Ben Coley are excellent, I think. Like, if you can get on, if you've got a wide range of bookmakers and you click quick, you can get those bets down. They're just not for us, probably. Not to be used a straight following tool anyway. Yeah, if you want to see how to do something, look at Sporting Life. If you don't want to follow a bad example, then use Oddschecker as a tale of how not to do things. I think that's the unfortunate truth at the moment. There may well be a time where they come out and we have a conversation with them about it or something. I'm not sure if that's in the works moving forward, but yeah, it's really just disappointment of what that brand was and what it seems to be becoming and how confusing it all is. I think that's the main thing about Oddschecker. It's always been a good site in the past. Yeah.
It has. Yeah, it always has. Yeah, that's Oddschecker. But there's also another tipster, what would you call it? Tipster Exposure League. It's a league put together by some guy on Twitter that's got a lot of traction. I think AK Bets has priced it up.
Yeah.
We know one of the people involved who is a genuinely big punter, a good punter, and probably should walk away with this. I don't know what the betting sample size on this. If is it a month? How long does it work? It does a little bit about the league structure, and we both know a couple of people involved, and you wouldn't switch down with a barge pole, would you?
Yeah, well, yeah, Jack, who calls himself Colonel Braxton on Twitter, I wouldn't say he's like an acquaintance, he's more my friend, really. Got to know each other quite well. He's in it, and he's the favourite at the moment.
Yeah.
So he's traditionally a football tipster, but it's a horse racing league. So it runs for 6 weeks, starting this weekend, I think. So it'll go up until close to the end of the year. So the participants will have to bet at AK Bets prices between 10 and 12.
Right.
I don't think they're allowed to use like crazy staking systems. I think it might be level.
1,000 points on this favourite, Josh.
Exactly. That's the kind of thing that they're trying to avoid. But I mean, yeah, as you said, I know 2 people and how they operate well in it. So Jack is one, and then the other one is somebody who we had a run-in with towards the back end of last year, the start of this. And yeah, just put it this way, like I wouldn't be calling him a reputable source of tips.
They offered to pay for us not to publish a review on this product, which we found negatively. Yeah. Well, obviously, we turned that down.
Yeah. So, yeah, he actually had at one point a very, very good betting product.
Yeah.
That's a long story about why it's not anymore, or why I don't think it is anymore. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think a lot of people have kind of sniffed at it, and I get why, because of some of the people involved. I've kind of got a bit of a counterpoint to that if they're having to send in bets every day, and traditionally they might lie or fabricate their records, they're not going to be able to do that with this. It's going to be quite transparent. Obviously, AK will be all on top of it because he's priced it and he's got to settle bets on it. So, yeah, I think it'll be an interesting thing to watch. There'll be lots of booming. There'll be lots of I'm the best in the world. I'm the greatest ever. There'll be lots of that. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And, yeah, hopefully Jack can win. That would be a win for the good guys.
There you go. Inside job there. Colonel Jack. Wheelbarrow job. All right. So that's going on there. So that's a bunch of chat about tipsters in the betting world. But we have now, this came out today internally. We have, well, Josh, you've put forward a complaint to the ASA, Advertising Standards Agency.
Yeah.
Because in previous Betting Clever episodes, we've referenced the company Fanwave Digital and how they operate. But no means the only company that operates where they're putting out particular bets, and it's Andy Robson Tips is one of their more popular platforms that they oversee. And we're not the only people who talked about this. No, Tom Brownlee's talked about it. There's been articles by Rob Davis in The Guardian, although Rob didn't give any credit to anybody else who'd written or spoken about it previously. But again, raising the particular issue that of the conflicts of interest potentially between the connections between bookmaker and supposedly punter's friend or tipster on social media with a large following who isn't actually just one man, it's a whole company. We put in a complaint, but unfortunately decided not to follow through on that for a very spurious reason. Josh, I'll let you expand a little bit more on this particular one.
Yeah, we say we, like, I think this, I'll actually clarify that first. It was something that I did kind of off my own bat. And the reason, I'm not trying to say it was me. The reason that I mentioned that is that they've come back and kind of equated us as a competitor with some of these companies.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand that because I did it as a member of the public. I would have done it whether I worked for the SBC or not. That's the God's honest truth. And secondly, we operate, maybe, we're in the gambling industry, but we'd never do what they do.
We don't have an affiliate model.
And they would never do what we do.
No, we don't do what they do. We don't put out betting tips on affiliate model as revenue. No.
So that's the main crux of what the ASA have come back with. They basically said, I've got to follow a different type of procedure because there could be, I'm reading into this, but I think it could be seen as a conflict that we may be competition. The reason why I did it, so I think pretty much everybody I speak to looks at all this stuff. people who are like clued up about gambling and they can just see it's an absolute con from a mile off. The reason why I've kind of gone to this level is that it's very obvious that a lot of people don't. I feel that a lot of people are seeing this as some kind of independent source where they're going to make money following it. If you look at the way they market themselves and what they do. The reason I've gone to the ASA, if you read something called the CAP code, so it's non-broadcast code, there's rules within there about what you are and what you're not allowed to do. So a very obvious example is, let's say, Pete, you get a free hat off Nike and you wear that hat on all your pictures on Instagram and Twitter and everywhere else. And you go, oh, I love Nike. Nike's my favorite thing in the world. If there was a girl called Nike, I'd like to marry her, that kind of thing. If you do that and you don't place ads next to it and they're paying you money, that's against law. Well, it's against the regulations that are set out by the ASA. Now, within the CAP code, that's very explicitly stated, but there's another one which I think applies really widely to all this. So for anyone who's a bit nerdy and wants to go look it up, it's 0.2.3. So if I just read it, marketing communications must not falsely claim or imply that a marketer is acting as a consumer or for purposes outside its trade, business, craft, or profession. Marketing communications must make clear their commercial intent if that is not obvious from the context. Now, the one that you've mentioned there, Andy Robson tips, if you go back through and you were a layman, he talks about, I've just got back from work. I'm just about to have a pint and have my tea.
Yep.
Who wants me to have a look at the game for tonight? Now, when the truth is that that's being sent from a multimedia company who have got affiliate deals with predominantly Paddy Power and Betfair, I would argue that that's just a straight outright breach. So next steps from it, obviously, they've come back and said, we need a bit more from you. I have already emailed both companies that I originally kind of targeted. It wasn't just Fanwave, it was another one called Checked Media, who work with similar kind of profiles. So I've got to write to them now by a recorded post, and I'll be doing that. But yeah, kind of understand why they may have thought that there's a conflict, but there really isn't. Like, I'd be doing this whether I work for the SBC or not, because it's just something that really annoys me. So yeah, I'll be following up on that.
Yeah, because the story's been there for a good 6 months at least. And, you know, looking at Andy Robson's profile now, right, it's 719,000 followers. So it's a prominent, very prominent account. I know a lot of people who follow it. Probably people who would never listen to this podcast won't hear about what we do or don't have any idea about the relationship of who Andy is, who's running it, the people behind it, the relationship between them and potential bookmakers, the conflicts of interest, and again, whether there are breaches of the advertising code there. We think there is, and there's a case to answer, and we think that it needs to be addressed because it's not clear. Like I say, there has been many stories about Instagram influencers not using the hashtag ad or promoting products that they've been paid for, you know, whether it be going on a free holiday, they're talking about a place to go and stay, and they're not actually making it very clear they've been paid to do that. I know there has been, not prosecutions, but there has been issues that have been raised and people have had cases to answer on that particular topic with high-profile influential accounts. That would be Instagram. But obviously social media is big these days on Twitter, and betting is big. And when you get, again, the central starting point of our podcast, Safer Gambling Week, this, again, it doesn't tie into that. And we need to see, hopefully we'll see, like I say, you'll put that complaint in, we can see if we can actually progress it. Are the ASA covering their backs by saying, oh, we might be a competitor and you need to put in a complaint as a, you know, Joe Public, no connections to anything, or maybe someone listening to this needs to put in a complaint. Hey, go for it. What Josh has read out the complaint there, go and put in a complaint. And if you have no connection to us and just a general member of the public, perhaps they'll listen to it. Or perhaps they don't want to take it on for whatever reason. And, you know, we're a cynical bunch here. Punters are a cynical bunch, whether it be talk about the Gambling Commission, whether we talk about the ASA, where we talk about IBAS, where we talk about all these other organisations where we feel like we don't get we get a raw deal, and I think we do. And I think perhaps this, hopefully, we might be able to report back in the future and see what happens. But it's slow wheels on these things, aren't they? It takes a long time to get anywhere, doesn't it, Josh? You know, it's like a whole process, and you've got to fill in certain forms. You've got to send it by recorded mail. You've got to get it signed by somebody or other. So, like, it's not a straightforward process, and it puts a lot of people off.
Yeah, it almost feels like that's part of the process. If you make it Kafkaesque enough, it'll put people off. This is a thing, like, I've had run-ins with bookmakers, I've had run-ins with tipsters, I've had run-ins with other people that are like similar to this. And like, I actually have got no interest in being all moralistic about telling people what they should or shouldn't do. The only thing where I will do that is basically just telling the truth. So like, if you're a tipster and you've got an affiliate deal, tell people that. And then if they want to follow you, that's up to them then. They know the facts. If you're a bookmaker and you're going to cut somebody if they beat a price, don't go around saying that you take all comers and that you've got broad shoulders, because you haven't. It's not about telling bookmakers they should do something, or tipsters or anybody else. It's just basically about not pretending you're something that you're not, because that's the thing that really boils my, I won't say that word.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just this pretense, which I suppose does go hand in hand with social media, let's be honest. But yeah, when it comes to gambling though, you talked about Instagram, like influencers there and stuff. I would argue that like gambling is a unique industry where obviously a lot of money can be lost quite quickly, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's different from buying a cap off Nike, like you with your fake story that I just told. It can be losing quite a lot of money on bets. So I think it's the moral case is actually quite different with gambling than it is with a lot of other industries. I think the nature of it is a bit different. I think, yeah, transparency is needed 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. We are an industry where everyone is a winner, but no one has to prove it, right? Just say you are a winner and say you're an expert, and there's no qualification required. Everyone is, because, they come on the podcast and tell me they're a winner. There was a high profile guest I had on earlier this year who said exactly the same thing. And when they were challenged to provide evidence of that, they refused. So if you want to go listen back to that episode and you know who I'm talking about, then...
I didn't know who I was scanning my brain then. It's somebody who doesn't visit the hairdressers often. Am I in the right train?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. This podcast is sponsored by the Matchbook Betting Exchange. When it comes to betting exchanges, Matchbook has been my personal go-to for some time now. Using horse racing as an example, they've offered the best prices on the most runners this year, which can make a big difference to your bottom line. Plus, with an industry-leading score of 4.2 on Trustpilot, you know you're in safe hands. Download the Matchbook Betting Exchange app or go to matchbook.com today. And if you enter the code SBC150, that's SBC150 on sign-up, you can get commission-free for your first 150 days, which can give you even more value. If you need to place a larger or more bespoke bet, or are indeed a corporate or operator client, their brokerage service is excellent and available 365 days a year. For more details, email the team at brokerage@matchbook.com. Matchbook Betting Exchange is for bettors who know better. Let's talk about some positive news, though. Let's talk about some good things that we've been working on. We talked earlier, actually, we did reference Scooty Who and the Betfair SP analysis. Scooty Who being an excellent service that we've analysed. Again, works professionally. All the things that some of these other people that we've just talked about do not do. He has an edge, and he has a commitment to being fair and being honest and being open. And we're also looking at more reviews. So we're always trying to look at different tipsters, different products. But what we found as well is that obviously we're renowned for going into detail, right? We don't publish something for a page or 2 pages. We get the data, we explore the data, we go into granular information on whether it be Betfair SP, whether it be Monte Carlo simulations, whether it be betting banks, losing runs, odds movement, all that kind of key information, which does help point you in the direction of good products and services. But sometimes we feel the need to do something a bit shorter. So we're going to put some, what we term snapshot reviews together, which isn't where we're going to avoid doing that detailed analysis perhaps further down the line, but where we feel like there's a level of interest, or maybe it's a more niche service, we're going to do something a little bit briefer, aren't we? And we'll start off with a boxing service that you've been talking about and looking at, which is ideal actually, because there's been one big fight last week, if you call it a fight, between Paul and Tyson. And then there's another one coming up just before Christmas with Tyson Fury. And boxing's a growing market, isn't it, Josh, as well? And you've got a service that doesn't tick the box for a big review just yet, but we feel like it's worthy of a snapshot review where we can get some key information out to those people of interest.
Talking about whether we'll actually end up doing a big review, I'm not sure if we ever will. It goes back to an issue that we talked about with Tom Brownlee this time last year about golf. You need such big sample sizes with some of these sports. Obviously, golf, because the odds are so high. But this is a boxing review. And the issue is that to get to like a couple of hundred bets may take 5 or 10 years. Because obviously, as everybody knows, there's not that many big fights. It comes from David Hitkin, who works at Sharp Betting, which is a relatively new site. He works on that with Chris Fawcett. With his boxing content, he's got a few colleagues that help him, and they work together too. So, last week there was the Jake Paul fight. He tipped in that. He had recommended a lay on Tyson quite far out from the fight. And if you looked at his social media, he was recommending topping up on that bet before it went off. The other bet that he took from that card, from the undercard, was Serrano, who I think she ended up going off quite a bit shorter than even money, didn't she?
She saw a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money came in. Was it 1 to 2 or something like that? Yeah.
I'm not sure if she went that low, but she was outsider when he tipped her. So, yeah, just looking at those and then looking at the profits he's made so far, it's a service where you've got to kind of read it for yourself. He does give recommended bets, but I think reading through his reasoning is always a good idea because that'll help you to weigh up how strong you want to go in a bet if you want to follow him in. Yeah, really impressed with him. We spoke last week and just talked about some of the stuff he's doing. It's really interesting. So, yeah, that's a really good one for a snapshot review, something where it's going to take us a long time to build up the sample size we'd need. The other one, it's where we go with this. So I'm kind of leaning towards looking at some services that maybe we just wouldn't give the time of day to. So I'm not talking about out-and-out con men, like the likes of whom I was talking about earlier, but maybe just some newer services or some services that get in a lot of attention and make bold claims to themselves. So I can have a look at them for a month or two and track CLV, track the user experience, track things like how quickly the odds drop, if they've got groups with thousands of people in. It's all interesting stuff. So those snapshot reviews will be free to everybody as well, won't they, Pete? So something we'll publish on site so you can come in and have a look at what we do and just get a taste of the type of analysis we do. So, yeah, if anyone has any major requests for tipsters they want looking at, then please get in touch and I'm open to all suggestions. I'll open that out after the boxing one's finished.
Sure. Yeah, like the Professor would have been one of those. You already did some analysis on that, for example. So those like that where you think, well, it could be interesting. I'm interested in it. What do we think? And even if it's an early look at it, like a new service like that, which is high profile, then absolutely we can look at that. And that's the snapshot reviews. We obviously talked about Goody Who, but we've got some other ones that we're looking at for, well, going into 2025 now. And we've got a range of, so what we're finding, we're just chatting pre-recording, weren't we? That, of course, we're looking at horse racing, we're looking at football, all the major markets, but we are seeing, as, for example, the horse racing market becomes more challenging. We've talked on different podcasts and a lot of people explained why horse racing has become more difficult, where markets become weak and then they become oversaturated in time, sometimes with certain angles and edges, which we've seen get into like more of a mass market. So people have to then tilt to, well, maybe it's Betfair SP, maybe it's the pre-off, maybe it's other sports and markets. So we talked about boxing there. And that is a growing market, as is something like darts. And we're also looking at another developing sport, relatively newer on the scene, but is increasing in interest and untapped edges in many ways that people maybe don't know much about these particular sports. But once you know more about betting and edges and how the ecosystem works, how bookmakers work and how much you can get down, there are potential areas for growth there and interest. And as we evolve and adapt, as you said earlier on, these are sometimes some of the markets we've got to look into. So what can we say about that new high volume service that we've got in that growing sport? Is there anything we can say? We can't really name too much about them just yet, Josh, but it's very exciting.
Yeah, so we're still in a testing phase. So we got provided with a long-term sample, which had the 80,000 bets in, I think.
Yeah.
What we're looking at is working with the people behind it to create something which is sustainable, isn't going to set off too many alarms, but is obviously still very profitable for punters. And then this goes to like the heart of what we do, I suppose, when something like this arrives, it's thinking about who it's suitable for.
Yeah.
So do we want to have 100 customers? Do we want to have 50 customers? Do we want to have different groups of customers? We're trying to make sure that along with them that we can create something which is both sustainable and profitable. So it's a tricky one. But as you say, these emerging markets, not just sports either, Pete, there's also an emergence of a different type of tipster who provides something very instantaneous via things like Telegram. It does allow for tipsters to communicate with their followers in different ways. And almost like with instant messaging, it's very different from what you'd get before, where you'd have to log onto a website or you'd get a daily email. This new generation of services are doing something quite different. So looking to be on the cutting edge of that. And yeah, I don't want to say too much about this service. I'm just trying to keep it under wraps, but yeah, I'm sure we'll report back on it soon.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have some interesting reviews, like say darts, one particular dart service. Again, we've already reviewed head-to-head darts. It was end of last month.
Yeah.
And that's a very good service, good edge, and quite a liquid market, right? Most bookmakers will price it up. There's good volume, and most of the darts tournaments, especially the televised ones, with exchanges and into the brokerage markets and such like. So there is ability to get down there. And I say boxing. We're also looking at, there's a horse racing service at the moment we're evaluating. But the challenges with that, it appeals to a certain type of person, people that have accounts that have availability to get down. Maybe they can hit shops. Maybe they have other more creative means of getting down. But we have seen, like say, some more mass market products kind of ruin some edges or make it increasingly more difficult, because it's no longer just people like us who are trying to bet into them. It's people who don't have any interest in betting or understand the market or understand. They're just kind of, someone's told them, like, it's a bit like the match betting kind of approach, isn't it? A lot of them are coming into it because match betting's got so difficult, and other people as well who some edges that have been around prior to now or for several years have become much more difficult. So as such, we need to change what we bet on.
Yeah, Pete, if I imagine this, you mentioned the darts service there. Are we going to be re-reviewing an old darts favourite soon as well? Was that on the list?
Right, yeah, that's right. Well, because again, like the market has changed since we last reviewed it. So, like I say, big bookmakers, sharp bookmakers will price it up now, a lot of these events. So it's changed. It's not just based on Bet365 pricing up the market and then everyone else copying them. There are other dynamics at play. So as the market evolves on some of these sports, so too we need to adjust our reviews and update. And then again, we just get a deeper sample, right? So this particular dart service has been around almost 20 years. So they've evolved their service. And so we need to adapt and update our reviews as such as well, because what maybe was more a niche product is now more mass market, or at least closer to that than previously. So yeah, just all about adapting and evolving our betting as ever. Is there anything else on the review front, or we're going to end on a negative note though, aren't we, Josh?
I think so. So yeah, if I ask this question, I think I know where you're going. I've been working away on the reviews and you've been working on a document to help punters. Is that right, Pete?
That's it. Yeah, we've preempted this with some content online.
Yeah.
Bookmakers delaying withdrawals. Now, the Gambling Commission say that it's their number one complaint. The volume of complaints they get about people coming to them and saying, hey, I have X amount of money in a bookmaker account and they won't pay me. I've been through customer service. I've tried to get answers. They won't either answer me or they are asking for documentation I don't wish to give them. Sometimes the documentation requests are ridiculous. We've heard about all those cases of people standing outside their house with a selfie with today's newspaper, almost like they're a hostage, like hold up today's newspaper. And they're more the extreme cases, but obviously there is a large amount. Now, it's interesting because the Gambling Commission back in July, who refused to come to the Smart Bash and announce this, the day after the Smart Bash, they posted a blog saying they're going to take action on it. And guess how much action they've taken, Josh? How can you count how many fines they've eked out?
Fines will be zero. I would have heard of them, I think.
Big, fat zero.
In terms of action, I mean, some of the cases that have got media attention or like social media attention, some of them I sometimes read between the lines and think, I reckon the person doing it might have been up to something that they've not disclosed. But then other ones, like some of them have come from people that I half know or do know. And you're just like, it's absolutely unbelievable, some of the things they try and pull. Again, there's just so many layers to it. So they're meant to ask for documentation at the earliest possible point. It's never meant to be a withdrawal unless they've got a very, very good reason. Yeah, anyone who's been in a situation where you've won a few grand and they're started to limit your account, it's amazing how quickly they need documentation when you go to withdraw 500 quid. Yeah, it's just terrible, isn't it?
Just to say, Joe, if people have multi-account, like I had someone email me and say, I opened an account in my wife's name. They're asking for documentation. What should I do? I'm like, look, I can't help you out. I'm not here as a resource to help you with that. Like, if you want to do that, like that's on you. That's almost like risky business, right? You got to say that there's an element I might risk this money, but I'll try it, right? So you'll probably get your deposit back. I don't know how it'll work for you, but good luck, right? I'm not here to help you. But multi-accounting goes on. Obviously, we can have a diatribe about that because of the fact it encourages multi-accounting through the restrictions, etc. But so much of these issues come at withdrawal. And when they go, right, you've won money. What about how many people who multi-account who don't win money? That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, you can lose money, but you can't win. And the fact it goes on at withdrawal and they start to get twitchy and say, oh, hang on, we want to see your bank account. We want to see this information. It's like just trying to catch you out. If you think or if they have any evidence of IP address usage or using the same Wi-Fi, all the kind of things that cookies or the same computer, all the kind of trails and things that all the data they capture. Yeah, use that at the starting point, not at withdrawal. And that's the issue at the moment with some of this, is that they're complaining and saying, oh, it's because we have all these multi-accounters. It's like, well, do it before withdrawal. That's my rant on that one.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm remembering this story correctly. I think you will remember it if it's true. I'm sure that Tom, Mr. Brownlee, wasn't he asked for a bank statement? And when he shared some of it, he had made a payment for like a kid's trampoline or something like that.
Yeah.
And the bookmaker accused him of multi-accounting because he had paid a trampoline company. Have I remembered that correctly?
Yeah, no, it's correct. It was a bouncy castle. It was a payment to his mum or from his mum for a bouncy castle for his kid's birthday.
Yeah.
So that was why, so yeah, that's just the stupid things that come up. But yeah, we are working on a resource. So effectively, like that's the issue right now. The Gambling Commission are doing sweet FA, it seems, on this. Yet more, like we talked about the ASA, the wheels of justice turn slowly, or to get any kind of action or have a complaint lodged or investigated. It takes forever. You've got to do all these, tick these boxes. You've got to send something by recorded mail. You've got to wait 6 to 8 weeks. And that is also with the, if you have a problem with a bookmaker, it takes 6 to 8 weeks. You have to have this formal complaint, which can take up to 8 weeks. And sometimes you can't get a final decision from the bookmaker. Anyone that's used customer service on many major bookmakers knows how difficult it is to get an answer from a real person. So that is in itself takes up to 2 months to get open a complaint. And then you have to go through, if you wanted to go through IBAS or some of these dispute resolution services, which are very poorly received. There are many complaints about them. So yeah, we're putting a document together on this. We're going to make it, again, a free resource to tell people, A, what the situation is, but B, to give you some practical advice. We're not going to tell you how to multi-account. We're just going to tell you like how to genuinely, set things up properly. So when you do have an account, you can try and prevent a problem from arising.
Yeah.
So you can try and make sure that when you come to withdrawal, everything's been done and there can't be any issues. Or if they still have a problem, even with the best preparation of work, you may fall foul of that, especially if you win a big sum of money, because hey ho, you win a big sum of money, they suddenly become even more interested in checking your details. And then what you can do in terms of, do you go to the resolution service? Do you go to small claims court? Do you try and put something on Twitter and go viral? Do you leave negative Trustpilot reviews? Do you threaten to talk to a lawyer? Like, they're all things that you can do, and some things do work. I've heard about people writing letters to the CEO of bookmakers and getting answers and things like that. So we're trying to put a resource together to help people because, like I say, it's the number one complaint. It's ridiculous. It's still going on. And if the people that are meant to protect us and advise us aren't doing their job, then we're going to try and step in and help people a little bit with some information.
Yeah. I mean, just a nod to Brian Chappell and Justice for Punters, who have done a lot of this work on people's behalf for years and years. I mean, it'll be in addition to what Brian provides on his site, but just more of a how-to guide. But yeah, it's madness that we even have to think about doing this. It just should be so much easier.
Exactly, yeah. And there's nothing worse than winning a bunch of money in a bookmaker and not being able to access that money, and it's taken forever to get out. It undermines faith in the system. And, we talk about, we haven't even talked about the black market. I think every episode prior to this, we've done a Betting Clever. We've had a segment on the black market. But you can see why it's growing when people think, well, I'm betting with a legit bookmaker and it won't pay me. So, what's the difference when I don't use them? I obviously don't advocate people use the black market because you're not going to get paid at all if you're any good. And even if you are a losing punter at some point, you might get screwed over too. So yeah, just one of those infuriating things. So what we can do to help, we will do. So, well, we've covered a lot of topics on this particular episode. Josh, is there anything we've missed off or anything you want to add in as a final piece?
No, nothing from me, Pete. You?
All good for here, mate. I'm looking forward to this. Now we're past the international football break. It's such a interminable period of time. The Nations League, it's a disaster. I hate it. We're back into it, mate. So yeah, betting 24/7 all the way until March when the next international break kicks in. So it's been...
Please remember to take regular breaks and to spend quality time with friends and family.
That's it. Gambling
is not the answer. That's the SPC message for Safer Gambling Week.
Well, no, I'm off down to WH Smith to buy some red and blue pens, mate, to as recommended by various people this week. All right. Thanks, Josh. And for everybody looking interested, we'll hopefully get the information on that bookmakers document out in December. And the Goody Who review is going up around the time this is publicised at the end of November, and all the Betfair SP analysis on there. And we'll keep you updated on the details of the ASA complaint as well. So thank you ever so much for listening. Go check out all the stuff, all our SBC information at smartbettingclub.com, and we'll speak to you soon.